Well, welcome and congratulations.
Thank you.
You campaigned on a pledge to make St. Louis safer. The good news is St. Louis is already getting a lot safer. How do you assess the work that Chief Tracy has done on the job so far?
Well, once I campaigned to make the state safer. I think that's safe to say. St. Louis certainly is one of the areas that we want to work with. I am a big fan of Chief Tracy. I think he's done a very good job, and I'm thankful that our community has him. I'd like to continue to work with him to achieve the goals of, what Missourians want, what St. Louisans want. They want to be able to walk the areas that they grew up in. They want to be able to go to work and feel safe. They want to be able to go to the downtown district and go to events and feel safe. And I want to continue to help achieve that goal.
I imagine, as a person with a business background, you take data into consideration as you survey the menu of options that you're about to inherit as you assume the role of governor. When you're looking at that data, crime statistics are going to show you that violent crime in St. Louis is trending downward. Why do you think that is? What is working in St. Louis?
I think good policing. I would give a lot of credit to the men and women who are on the police department. They're working with limited resources and certainly short of manpower. But I would give a lot of credit to both Chief Tracy and his staff, as well as the men and ladies who are wearing the uniform.
About 300 vacant positions that are in the city budget. So taxpayers are paying for them, but they're having a hard time finding and filling some of those roles as it stands currently. You probably know that St. Louis voters head to the polls in March to elect a mayor. Right now, the mayor controls the police department, and you're running on this campaign. You ran, rather, on a campaign to change that, to take control of the police department from the mayor and give it to whichever commissioners you would appoint in a state board. Shouldn't voters get to pick who runs their police department?
Well, we're just looking to put this back under state control. St. Louis is under state control since literally the Civil War until about 2013. We think that was an issue that was tried that has not worked as successfully as we think it could. So state control would still have local representation on that police board, but we believe it's a little bit better model.
But to the main question, shouldn't voters get to decide that?
I think voters have decided that. I ran on that issue, and thank goodness have won an election, and I believe that was part of the message they liked.
You did win, 59% to 39%, but in the city of St. Louis, your numbers weren't quite as strong. In fact, your opponent got 79% of the vote. 4 and 5 St. Louis city voters picked somebody else for governor.
Yes. Well, I mean, St. Louis has never been a Republican stronghold. We all know that. If you look at the primary, we did very well in the city of St. Louis, and I stay very much connected with organizations here, so I believe we'll be able to continue to work with them and move something forward that achieves those goals of creating safer neighborhoods and giving the resources to the men and ladies who protect those communities, our police department, what they need and deserve.
We have more sworn officers per capita than Minneapolis, more than Atlanta, and yet we have a higher homicide rate than both of those cities. So if they have fewer police and fewer murders per capita, why are you convinced that more police would make St. Louis safer?
It's a combination of things. I think having Chief Tracy here, he's only been on board about a year and a half. Gabe Gore's been here not quite a year maybe yet, but a short time. It's a combination of tools that we can put together, I think, that will make a big difference. Gabe Gore has done a fantastic job, and I believe his prosecutorial efforts will make a big difference in some of our outcomes.
Basically, what you'd be sending us is 4 police board commissioners. If that's the answer, then why isn't it working in Kansas City? Because they have the same staffing shortages and their crime trends are going up when ours are going down.
Well, in Kansas City, as you may recall, the mayor cut $42 million out of the police budget. You can have state control or not have state control. When you take that big of a hit into the budget, it makes a big problem. And they're officers short as well. They're over 300 officers short as well. So it's a variety of issues that are somewhat different in each of the metropolitan areas. But we believe that the overall crime plan, and remember, state control is just one piece of it, retention, recruitment, et cetera.
Sure.
Some of the things you pointed out are other parts of the crime plan.
I guess what I'm driving at is when voters listen to this interview, they're going to look for something practical, something tangible. And sending us 4 police commissioners might look nice on paper, but what's the tangible effect? Let me ask you the question this way. If you could send 400 state troopers to St. Louis, or 4 police commissioners, which would you pick?
I would pick the results that gave us safer streets. Look, if you sent 400 state troopers to St. Louis, We don't want to create a military state. We don't have the resources, quite frankly, to be able to send that many state troopers here. But what we do have is the ability to help build St. Louis's police force. You mentioned there are over 300 people down. They have the budget there to do it. We think our retention and recruitment efforts are going to be very helpful in that. Again, I think Chief Tracy and Gabe Gore adds to the ability to recruit. And we just feel overall that that's going to help us create the safer neighborhoods. We got a couple other pieces in our crime plan that we'll be unrolling on January 13th after my hand comes off the Bible, as I've said, that will create some other opportunities, I think, for safer streets all across our state.
Is there something the mayor could do that where you'd say, okay, I'll back off and I think you've got this. You've got the police department under control?
Well, as you mentioned, I'm a small businessman by trade, and the business community does not feel like the streets are safer here. And if you want people to invest in the businesses here, if you want them to create jobs and grow jobs, you have to get the business community in a comfort zone, and right now they don't feel that way.
You mentioned that the State Highway Patrol is strained for resources. A lot of departments across the country feel the same way. In years past, under your predecessor, still Governor Mike Parson, he has declined specific requests from the city to send State Highway Patrol to make the highways and areas around St. Louis, perhaps for big events, safer. He's declined those, and there are some state representatives from this area who may, again, bring that call to your desk. Will you decline it as well?
I'll look at each individual circumstance, the way they come up to us. Again, I would work with Chief Tracy and other local law enforcement officials to make sure what those requests are needed, and if it's something that we believe warrants safer streets or a safer environment around a particular event, we'd certainly take a look at it.
This is a slightly different question in administration because the National Guard and the Highway Patrol are different. They serve different functions, but when it comes to manpower, the state of Missouri did send 200 National Guardsmen to the southern border. And as I understand it, they basically watched drone video that somebody else was controlling. They were there to help with, keep eyes on the border. If that was a priority, could you send that many bodies from the National Guard, perhaps, to St. Louis? If you're looking at your menu of options, is that one of them?
First of all, let me tell you, I went to the border with the National Guard troops, and I went to the border also with Missouri State Highway Patrol troops. They were doing more than watching drone videos. Our National Guard men and women absolutely participated in activities that made our country and our state safer.
Such as?
Very proud of what they did. They were physically on the border in various stations, manning the border, watching for illegal crossings, watching the coyotes that bring the illegal crossings over, apprehending those illegals, and then working directly with immigration.
They performed apprehensions?
Working directly with immigration to make sure. Now, technically, did they handcuff somebody or did they detain them until somebody from the feds came? Mm-hmm. I don't want to get that specific because that was something they asked us not to. But
I thought you were making some news. That's why I asked you.
They did a very good job of representing our state. But to your question, I don't know that we're at a point where calling up the National Guard is a very serious issue that a governor can have. Mm-hmm. And I believe there's some other tools in the toolbox well in advance before we ever got to that state.
You might know what I'm driving at ultimately is because someone has to pick up the cost. Hiring these police officers will become an added cost to the city, and finances are a struggle. Let's shift gears, though, slightly to public schools, because right now the finances at St. Louis public schools, I think it's an objective statement to say they're in tatters. It's not looking great over there. What is the state's role in reforming that? Because that's state dollars, largely.
Well, you've seen various activity with St. Louis City Public Schools over the last several years, special appointed boards, different superintendents that have come in and gone. Right now we have State Auditor Scott Fitzpatrick doing an audit on the St. Louis school system. Some real troubling things that have surfaced in the news publicly that we've seen. So we have to figure out a way to get that under control. Education is one of the things I ran on, and working on education reform, whether that's charter schools or various options for parents to send kids to other schools that they think have a better curriculum or in a different position for their child. That's something very much we want to be involved in.
If state dollars, public dollars, the Missouri Constitution, as you well know, has a specific language in there about public dollars going to private and religious parochial schools. If state tax dollars through tax credits and other means are going to prop up some of these private and religious schools, should the public also have an interest in seeing those schools open their books to the public?
Yeah, I think they should be held accountable if they're receiving public dollars. Such as a charter school or something. I think they should be held to the same standard that other public school systems are.
And through the private school tax credit
Well,
program?
the education savings account issue that we've passed through the legislature, I think is probably a little bit different than direct funding of state tax dollars to somebody, to a school system.
Even though it comes off the state's balance sheet, you don't consider that a public expense?
Yeah, it's not held to the same standards. It's not appropriated the same way. It's very much outside of the DESE system.
Mm-hmm. You campaigned on promises to give teachers raises. You want to see police make a little bit more money. How do you pay for all that if you're also trying to cut the state's income tax.
Yeah, we're working on budget issues right now. The next couple of years of budgets are going to be challenging. And as you know, we passed a bill, the legislature passed a bill, and the governor let it go through. That was Senate Bill 727 that gave teacher salaries an increase up to $40,000. So we were happy to see that happen. We think that's an appropriate thing to do. But when you say we're going to cut the state's income tax, I've made it very clear this is not a light switch. It's not a magic wand where all of a sudden one day you're going to have it, the next day you're not. You're going to have to create, and we have some ideas, and we have been doing this historically, a responsible ramp to where when general revenues grow, there's room for a tax cut and still provide essential services. In the last 5 years, we have cut our state income tax from 6% to 4.7%, and we haven't cut essential services. So it might take a while to get there, but we believe putting money back in Missourians' pockets over a bureaucrat being able to spend it is better every day of the week.
And that income tax reduction has basically applied to everyone equally, more or less. In
Correct.
Missouri, you don't actually have to do that. You have more levers in the tax code available to you if you'd like. Perhaps you would agree with the statement that in this last election, prices was one of the biggest influences on voters and the way voters think about the way their government is working for them. If that's true, and you already want to cut the income tax, and you don't know if you can cut it all at once, it's not that light switch, then why not prioritize people in poverty and start with giving people at the bottom rungs of the income brackets relief first?
Well, listen, my family was at the bottom rungs of the income bracket for many years of my childhood. I still believe that a fair and equitable way is to do the same thing for everybody across the board.
So you're saying no, you wouldn't consider a more progressive structure?
Well, I mean, anything could be on the table that you can look at, but I'm not really good at saying what I would support or not support a theoretical something or another without understanding what all the implications are.
I think one of the big implications would be that people with the least breathing room in their budget would have a little bit more walking around money, and in spending it, there's economic activity there.
But I think there's other ways for people with that need a little bit more breathing room in their budget, and that's providing opportunities, and that's what my small business background will bring. Being able to build our economy here through economic development, asking existing employers to expand their business, new employers to move here, giving those Missourians a hand up and not a handout, I believe is the answer to some of the problems. Along with workforce development, job training, getting involved in these neighborhoods where you can help with job training, getting kids off the streets and into finishing some education of their sort, whether it's a trade or career technical education, and then providing a spot for them to go to work. I think that's as important as anything else that we can do.
The abortion fight is not over in Missouri, but voters did just weigh in a big way. And one of the House Republicans, who is top in the running to become Speaker of the House and claim the gavel there, John Patterson, says that the GOP and the state should respect the will of the voters. Two-part question. Do you agree with his statement? And what does that mean to you? What does that look like?
Well, first of all, I would argue just a little bit respectfully, in a big way, was not necessarily the case. Amendment 3 did pass. I was very vocal about, I thought Amendment 3 was a bad amendment to our Constitution, but it did pass. And I've also said, when my hand goes on the Bible, I will swear to protect Missouri's Constitution. I think you can also, though, pivot to making sure you continue to try to protect innocent life. One of the ways we can do that is working very closely with our pregnancy resource centers across the state. We have a lot of great facilities that really help ladies out with that whole decision about having a baby, what it means, how do they get help on the other side. I'm a big fan of pregnancy resource centers, and now with the unfortunate passing of Amendment 3, and as you know, we have a court hearing going on in Jackson County. We're waiting to see what those results could come from that court to what this all may or may not do. But we also have to work with the existing structure we have. I think pregnancy resource centers are a great option.
So to the point, do you want to see another amendment question on the ballot that would narrow access to abortion in 2026?
I really believe, from talking to Missourians, there was a lot of confusion about what Amendment 3 did or didn't do. And if it goes as far as what we believe it does, this is extreme as far as I believe it does, Missourians might end up deciding that something that tightens it up a little bit could be a better option.
I'd like to close where we started, back to public safety. Perhaps you've seen a letter to you from 6 or 7 local mayors across the state of Missouri. They're asking for you to consider options that would give them tools, their police officers tools, to keep guns out of the hands of minors, kids. These are already federal crimes, but as you know, the Second Amendment Preservation Act was one big attempt for Missouri to say we're not going to enforce those federal gun laws here. In Kansas City, the Jackson County Council there, the county legislature, has opted to raise the age limit to buy a gun to 21. They're trying to do something they think would work there. What steps are you prepared to take to assist these police officers and these local officials in their efforts to keep guns out of the hands of kids?
Yeah, I have seen the letter, to answer your question, and it's not a new conversation. It's been going on for quite a while. And, the problem that we have is deeper than the gun. And I know people don't want to hear that, but I'm going to tell you, it's deeper than the gun. It's the culture of life. We have lost this entire, whether we go back to the Amendment 3 question with the abortion issue, or whether we have, 12 or 15-year-olds carrying around, 9mm guns. The whole issue is that we have lost the culture of life in this country and in this state. And to the extent I can work with anybody, and there are a lot of groups who want to do this, to try to dig into the root of the problem, not put the Band-Aid on it, get to the root of the problem, and why is it that that 12 or 15-year-old wants to carry around a 9mm?
When you speak of problems of culture, I know that clergy, coaches, teachers, parents, celebrities even, can all speak to that. I'm asking you what the state can do. The state tells you what you shall and shall not do with laws. If the state can set an age limit at 18 to buy a gun, why can't a city set it at 21?
Well, the legislature will certainly have to debate that bill, and I would not comment again on a bill that does not have any form or fashion. But all I can tell you is that I am from inner city St. Louis, and I can tell you that the first gun that I got and most of my friends got was not purchased at a store. These are, part of the overall crime problem. It's part of the issue that, we have access sometimes to people that should not have access to those weapons through the crime issue. And I think that's one of the big pieces. If you can get that crime under control, you can get some of those pieces under control as well.
The question before the legislature, though, is not to allow the police. So one question I would ask you is, should St. Louis police officers have the legal authority to approach a 14-year-old carrying an AR-15 and question them, to possibly temporarily confiscate that, maybe fine them for carrying it out in the open? I could ask you, should those police officers have that power? But the legislature right now is not even seeking to just look the other way and give those police officers that power. They're actually saying, no, if you do that, officer, we're going to sue you. Why take a hostile approach with police?
Well, we don't want to take a hostile approach with police, but the whole issue comes down to when you have youth with firearms, there's two different problems with it. One size doesn't fit all, but then when you start putting together a patchwork saying this community can do it and this doesn't, in St. Louis, 81 municipalities, so that we have it under one way in one municipality and a neighbor in a different municipality, that's the problem with that approach.
One size fits all?
It doesn't necessarily always make one size fits all issues when you start talking about how you can put together a patchwork of laws that applies in this municipality and not this municipality.
Governor-elect Kehoe, I really enjoyed the conversation. If I could just zoom out real quick and just ask, we're glad you're here, having this whole conversation, but I want to get a feel for your sense of the importance of engaging with the media. Some politicians look at this and say, well, I got to get my message out. Understand that. Yeah. Do you see any other value in transparency or engagement with the media?
Yeah, again, I campaigned on, what you see is what you get with me. I've maintained as best relations as I can with the media since I've been in office, and even before that in the private sector.
It might be more popular to beat us up, some jerk who's never been in the office trying to question you about your big plans.
I would only do that if the media person was from Illinois. I would never do that.
I grew up in Indiana, actually, just across the border.
Well, my wife's from Illinois, so I can make those inside jokes. But it has to be a two-way street. I'm a relationship person. It can't be a one-way street with the media. It can't be one of these where it's always about the kind of gotcha approach to politics. I do think Missourians and people across this country are sick and tired of that. I have an incredible relationship with multiple reporters who ask me tough questions. I'm not opposed to tough questions, but I know them. I know about their family. They know about me. We know about each other, and it's more about the relationship and just having conversations about what's happening versus always kind of that get you moment.
Tough but fair.
Tough but fair is fine with me.
Governor-elect Mike Kehoe, thanks for your time.
You bet. Thank you.